I was staring at my hotel bathroom mirror, blotting concealer over the crater that stress had dug into my right cheek, when the app notification lit up my phone. Your meeting with Zenith AI is confirmed. Suite 1432, 9:30 a.m. I, Julia Tran, froze mid-blend. There it was. Confirmation of the biggest moment in my career. The thing I'd chased through 3 mergers, 2 reorganizations, 4 years of being called great with people like it was a damn apology. I exhaled, then smiled, not too wide. I'd learned that big smiles made men in boardrooms assume I wanted approval. I didn't want approval anymore. I wanted leverage. Downstairs, the conference floor was a riot of overpriced shoes, slick booths, and ambitious underlings trying to look both busy and important. I'd been all those things once. Now, I moved like I belonged, because I did. Even if my badge still said senior manager like it was a scar they refused to let fade. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a Slack ping from my boss, Ron. Don't forget to soft pitch Zenith, but let's not overpromise. That integration is maybe a 2-5 thing. I read the message 3 times. Soft pitch? After 3 months of navigating NDAs, flying to Palo Alto on my own dime, slipping into beta tests under fake user credentials just to confirm compatibility, now he wanted me to soft pitch the biggest AI firm in the sector? I resisted the urge to scream into the sink. Instead, I composed a reply. Noted. Will read the room. Then I muted him. I walked out of the room and onto the convention floor, heading toward the escalators that would carry me to the upper suites. My badge swayed on its lanyard, still branded with that startup-turned-bloated beast logo, the one that used to feel like a badge of pride. Now, it felt like a warning label. The thing about being underestimated for too long is you start weaponizing it. I had learned to nod like I agreed when Ron rewrote my slide decks. I'd learned to laugh politely when the CTO called me the partnership whisperer, like I was some corporate animal handler. I definitely learned not to correct people when they credited my projects to the men who sat near me. Like the time I introduced their product to the East Asian telecom client that would later double their valuation and got left out of the press release entirely. Or when I caught a privacy compliance issue just in time to avoid a 7-figure fine and legal sent Ron a bottle of Glenlivet. But this time was supposed to be different. This time, I had receipts. I had kept every email, every scheduling chain, every late-night Slack message from Zenith's COO, who off the record had told me, "This only works if you're in the room." And now I was. At 9:12 a.m., I was already outside Suite 1432, pretending to check emails while ignoring the thrum in my chest. It wasn't nerves. It was fury, waiting for somewhere to go. The air smelled like someone had sprayed confidence out of a can. Maybe it was just cologne and capitalism. I looked down at my phone. Still no text from Ron to wish me luck. No, let me know how it goes. He was probably too busy pretending he'd booked the meeting himself, probably already refreshing his inbox, waiting for me to feed him the good news he could repackage as leadership. You're just good at small talk, Emily. You've got a people gift. That's what he told me in my last performance review. Same one where he suggested she shadow someone more technical if she wanted a shot at promotion. Never mind that it was my strategic playbook that opened the Japan market, or that I taught myself enough Python to prototype the plugin that got them that glowing TechCrunch review. But sure, let's call her the people person. Translation. You make things happen, but we'll never say you built them. I wiped my hands on my blazer. Slate gray, tailored, no flashy jewelry. The kind of outfit that said, I'm not here to flirt. I'm here to close. My hand hovered near the doorbell of Suite 1432 when, of course, my phone rang. Ron? I muttered, the name tasting like dust. I answered with practiced brightness. Hey, what's up? His voice was calm, too calm, like a dad explaining to his kid why the family dog had to be sent to a farm. Julia, quick one before your meeting. Just wanted to loop you in on a shift. Had to make some hard decisions this quarter. My stomach dropped. And unfortunately, your role was impacted. I blinked. The hallway wobbled like a bad camera pan. Impacted? I know this is a shock, Ron continued, breezy like a self-help podcast, but the company's pivoting and we had to prioritize core verticals. You'll get full severance, of course. HR will follow up. Silence. He mistook it for confusion. You'll land on your feet. You always do. People like you. He hung up. I stood alone in the hallway, phone still pressed to my ear like a dead limb. I wasn't breathing or blinking or processing. I was just there. Fired. 2 minutes before the biggest meeting of my career, before the deal that would have finally made me undeniable. And just like that, I was disposable. I lowered the phone, looked at the door, then I pivoted, not away, but toward the elevator or the rival suite across the hall. I didn't knock on the rival's door right away. I just stood there, staring at the gold-plated number, Suite 1435, while my pulse pounded hard enough to echo in my teeth. A split second earlier, I was an employee with momentum. Now I was a professional ghost, technically unemployed, standing outside a door that could change everything or ruin me completely. That was when the second notification came in. Zenith AI internal memo. Confirmed intent to sign exclusive integration agreement with Julia Tran, contingent on in-person verbal confirmation. Expires 10:00 a.m. My breath caught. I reread the message twice, then a third time. The subject line alone was enough to drop a man to his knees. Exclusive integration. My name, not the company's. Hers. It was real, all of it. Zenith had done what no partner had ever done before. Acknowledged that I wasn't just a mouthpiece for my employer's logo. They knew I'd brokered this. They wanted me at the table, not Ron, not legal, not the overpaid VP who once asked me to keep it light on the analytics, honey. They wanted Julia Tran. The floor under me felt less like carpet now and more like ignition, and that's what made the next few seconds all the more bitter. Because while I stood there, 2 minutes from walking into what should have been my coronation, my phone began to buzz again. Ron. The name lit up my screen like a virus warning. I thought about ignoring it, letting him rot in his own irrelevance. But instinct and trauma were a hell of a drug. I picked up. Ron, I answered, careful to keep my voice even, clipped. I'm about to step into the Zenith meeting. Yeah, he said, dragging out the word like it owed him rent. But before you go in, I need to share something. I paused. What? You're being let go. The words didn't hit like a hammer. Hammers are honest. This was a scalpel, small and cold and designed to make you bleed in ways that don't show up until you're too dizzy to stand. I'm sorry, she said, too calm, too sharp. Her voice cracked like frost. It's a company-wide restructure, he lied. I knew it. He knew she knew it. It wasn't personal. You've done great work. Leadership felt we need to consolidate strategic functions. Strategic functions? I was the only person in the department who knew what the hell strategic even meant. Ron kept going, as if reciting from a script he didn't bother to rehearse. There'll be a generous severance and HR will handle the transition. Please don't worry about the Zenith meeting. I'll have Greg follow up. I actually laughed, not a polite one. A broken, breathless, kidding me? Kind of laugh that scared a hotel staffer passing by. You're sending Greg? She spat. The guy who thought NLP stood for no longer profitable? I know this is hard, Ron said with the effect of someone explaining how printers work to a toddler. But let's not burn bridges. You think I care about bridges? I said. I built the road. There was a silence so thick it could have clotted. Then came the part that would sit in my spine for years. You'll be fine, Julia. People like you make rooms feel good. He hung up before I could answer. For a second, the hotel hallway collapsed in on itself. Not literally, but emotionally. The world narrowed to the click of elevator doors, the whir of air vents, the distant noise of a keynote speaker yammering about disruption while sipping overpriced green juice. My phone was still in my hand, that little glowing brick of betrayal. I looked at the time, 9:28, 2 minutes. 2 minutes to decide if I was going to disappear like Ron clearly hoped, if I'd slip out of the hotel, take the severance, and maybe one day get my revenge by leaking earnings slides to a hungry tech journalist. Or I could walk into Suite 1435, not as an employee, as a weapon. I looked down at my badge, then peeled it off. The lanyard slipped free from my neck with a satisfying little snap, like a snake shedding dead skin. I tucked it into my pocket, squared my shoulders, and knocked. Not once. Not gently. 3 sharp raps, because Julia Tran wasn't asking to be in the room anymore. She was kicking the damn door open. The knock still echoed when I nearly lost my nerve. For one long heartbeat, my knuckles tingled like they'd just set off a bomb. My hand hovered uncertain near the suite door. I could feel the thick hotel air clinging to my blazer. Smell the faint tang of citrus cleaner mixed with casino smoke wafting up from below. Everything felt wrong. Too still. Too quiet. Like the moment before a courtroom verdict. Except this time, I was the defendant, the prosecutor, and the only damn witness. I wasn't employed anymore. That fact hit me like a shove to the chest. I was no longer representing anyone. No legal authority, no badge that meant anything, no fallback plan. If I walked into that room, it wouldn't just be bold. It might be illegal, or stupid, or humiliating. I had no idea how Zenith would react. What if they laughed? What if they called security? What if they were only ever interested in the deal because of the brand behind her? And now, without it, she was just some unemployed nobody in a fitted blazer. My heart was slamming around in my ribcage like a bird stuck in a shoebox. I turned halfway, looked back down the hallway I came from, or the elevator, toward the soft retreat of resignation. I imagined myself walking away, not in disgrace, but in dignity, quiet, no scene, just another burned-out woman with a rolling suitcase full of sensible shoes and shattered dreams. Maybe I'd book an earlier flight, sleep for a week, drink red wine with my sister, and blame the economy. That could be my story. That would be easy. But something stopped me. A memory, stupid and sharp. My first year at the company, when Ron had accidentally left me off the invite for a critical strategy meeting, then claimed it must have been a Google Calendar glitch. I remembered sitting in a glass conference room lobby, watching men twice my age pretend they hadn't seen me, waiting through the window like a dog at a locked door. Or the time I nailed the pitch to the big retail client, and Ron had literally said to the team, "Let's all thank Emily for setting the vibe." Vibe? Like I'd been lighting scented candles instead of saving their Q2 pipeline. My fingers curled into fists. My skin prickled, and the voice in my head, the one I usually ignored, started growling, low and dangerous. They don't get to decide your value. I took one step back toward the door, then another. The handle on Suite 1435 clicked, and a woman in a blue pantsuit opened it, early 30s, sharp eyes, phone to her ear. She glanced at me, paused. "You're here for the Zenith sit-down?" The woman asked, voice crisp but neutral. I swallowed. Yes. The woman nodded slightly and stepped aside. "They're waiting." I walked in and everything changed. The suite was sleek and sunlit, with towering windows framing the city's smear of neon chaos below. A large modular couch, a glass table scattered with tablets and black coffee, and behind it all, 2 men and 1 woman in quiet conversation. One of the men looked up, recognition sparked. His name was Lars Mikkelsen, CEO of Summit Tech, the rival firm my own company had dismissed as low-rent disruptors in at least 6 internal decks. He looked at me like he wasn't sure whether to laugh or lean in. "Well," he said slowly, "look who finally crossed the aisle." I opened my mouth, words stacked behind my teeth like anxious dominoes. My palms were sweating, my voice gone rogue, my tongue felt thick. Somehow, I pulled it all together. "Lars," I said, stepping forward with the steady confidence of someone bluffing into a royal flush, change of plans. He studied me for a moment, reading more in my body language than a LinkedIn ever could. Then his eyes narrowed, the corner of his mouth twitching in something dangerously close to a smile. "Change," he said, motioning toward the empty chair, "is good." I sat. I had no plan, no legal clearance, no job title, just the deal memo on my phone and a fire in my gut that burned hotter than the shame. The woman in the blue pantsuit, now seated at the edge of the room with a stylus in hand, turned to Lars. "Should we loop in legal?" Lars shook his head. "Let's hear what she has to say first." I looked at each of them. The weight of the unknown pressed hard against my ribs, but I didn't flinch. Because the truth was this. The old Julia might have walked away, but the one sitting in that chair, she was done playing nice. I smoothed my blazer like it was armor. My fingers found the edge of my phone, still buzzing with the aftershocks of Ron's cowardice. I could feel his voice in my bones, that smug, dismissive, "You always make people like you." Like my entire career had been a charm trick, like I was a cocktail party in heels, not a strategist who'd cracked open Zenith's API potential before any engineer on payroll even knew what the damn acronym stood for. But now, I was in their house, Summit Tech's suite, and there were no soft lights or welcome platitudes, just the CEO and 2 senior execs who looked at me the way predators look at prey that might surprise them. Lars Mikkelsen leaned forward, elbows on his knees, expression sharp, his salt and pepper beard trimmed with military precision, his eyes glinting like they'd already calculated 12 outcomes and were waiting to see which one she bled into. "You look calm," he said. I expected flustered. I smiled without showing teeth. I did panic in the hallway. Then I remembered I don't work for cowards anymore. That got his attention. Lars glanced at his team, then back at me. "So, this is off book?" I nodded once. Off book, off payroll, off brand. I placed my phone screen down on the coffee table like a dealer laying her ace. But here's what's still on the table. Zenith exclusive integration. They want to sign today. They don't care about logos, they care about the human interface. That's me. The woman in the corner, Sheila, based on her email signature from a dozen competitive pitch threads, scoffed, polite but pointed. "Forgive the skepticism, Miss Tran, but if you're no longer representing your company, what exactly are you proposing?" I locked eyes with her. "That I bring the deal to this table instead." Sheila opened her mouth, but Lars raised a hand. "Wait," he said, eyes narrowing. "I know you." My heart thumped. I was on that SXSWU panel last year, the one about scalable ethics in machine learning. "You were keynote. Your CTO was on my panel." Lars snapped his fingers. "Timothy, that's right. You're the one who made him eat his own slide deck about predictive modeling." I leaned back, relaxed for the first time all day. I asked him to define Bayesian inference without his notes. He couldn't. Lars laughed, a single barking sound like a rifle crack. "That was you?" I didn't blink. "Still me?" He stood up, walked to the window. The desert sun threw gold across his tailored suit, backlit like a villain in a redemption arc. "So, let me get this straight. You were fired this morning, 2 minutes before my Zenith meeting. You have no legal authority to negotiate, correct? You're risking being blackballed from half the valley." I tilted my head. Only the half that lets men like Ron get away with intellectual theft and performative empathy. Lars turned around. And you're here, why? Revenge? No, I said. Opportunity. He studied me, really looked now, not as a resume, not as an email signature, but as a live wire. You've got teeth, he said finally. I didn't flinch. You don't survive in tech without growing fangs. There was a pause, and in that pause, the atmosphere shifted, not tense, not polite, electric. Lars sat down again. Walk me through what Zenith wants. Assume I'm already sold on you, but show me why I should be sold on the switch. I nodded. Zenith doesn't want to build, they want to integrate. But they don't want to integrate with dinosaurs. My former employer's roadmap is bloated and 2 quarters behind. Their products riddled with code debt. They'll strangle Zenith's agility. I know because I spent the last year untangling it. I was their workaround, their translator, their fix. And now I'm unclaimed. And I'd rather sell fire to someone who knows how to keep it burning. Sheila tapped something into her tablet. The third exec, quiet until now, leaned over and whispered to her. Lars didn't even blink, just leaned back and said, You realize if this works, it won't just bury your old employer, it'll bury everyone who vouched for them. My voice was quiet, steady, lethal. Good. Lars grinned. You've got the room. Don't screw it up. I picked up my phone and pulled up the confidential term sheet Zenith had sent her that morning. NDA still unsigned, time-stamped, untethered. For the first time all morning, my hands didn't shake. I wasn't free-falling anymore. I was flying. Lars didn't make me wait. After I walked him through the Zenith term sheet, sketched the integration hooks on a hotel napkin, and cited 2 back-end conflicts their engineers hadn't caught, he raised his eyebrows, leaned back in his chair, and asked one question. How fast can you get them to sign with us instead? I didn't blink. Before your martini hits room temp. That was it. He extended his hand across the table, half-smile cutting through his practiced stoicism. Interim VP of Strategic Initiatives, he said. Unofficial for now. You answer only to me. Nail the deal, and we go permanent. I shook his hand. His grip was dry and firm, old school. You'll need to fly under the radar, he said. This conference is full of snakes, and your old boss probably still thinks he owns your signature. He owns a PowerPoint I made in 2019, I said. Can frame that and cry into it. Lars chuckled. Get to work, Tran. And just like that, I crossed the line from ghosted to ghost operative. The elevator ride down felt like decompression from a scuba dive. I stared at my reflection in the gold trim, watching my own face morph from bewilderment to something leaner, sharper. It hit me that I was now operating in full stealth, unemployed on paper, deputized in private. If Ron found out, hell, if anyone did, it could all collapse. I slipped back into the main conference floor like a fox in borrowed fur. My badge still had my old company's name, and that alone was enough to keep the wrong questions away. I nodded at people I hated, hugged people who once stole my slide decks, and smiled with the hollow precision of a news anchor reporting a plane crash. My first move was to loop in Kara, an old friend in dev relations who'd always said, If you ever jump ship, take me with you. Kara was still with the old company, stationed at the demo booth like a branded mannequin. I approached her with an iced matcha in hand. Peace offering, I said. Kara took it, then leaned in. What happened? I lowered my voice. I need a quick favor. Private, can we walk? They made a loop around the faux garden near the startup booths. I laid out just enough. I was out, not by choice, and something big was in motion. Can't say where I'm landing, I said, but I need to know if Ron's activated the damage control machine. Kara nodded. He's been pacing, pulled Greg from the sales floor. Nobody knows why yet. I exhaled. Okay, keep eyes open. And if you hear anything about Zenith... Kara stopped walking. Wait, you're still doing Zenith? I didn't answer. Kara laughed under her breath. Jesus, Jay, you're a shark. I smiled. Just hungry. They split. Kara vanished into the crowd like smoke, and I beelined to the one person I knew would need careful handling. Jonah Mayers, the investor, a mentor once, then a ghost when the board got too political. I hadn't seen him in a year, but he texted me earlier. Heard something weird. Can we talk? He was near the VIP bar, sipping gin and scanning the crowd like a war general. I approached cautiously. Jonah. He turned, eyes lighting up. Julia, you look like someone who just buried a body. Metaphorically. He motioned for me to sit. Tell me everything. I didn't. Not all of it. Just the facts that mattered. I was no longer with the company. I had the Zenith deal still in reach. I was transitioning. Jonah sipped, thinking. Does Ron know? No. Do you want him to? Not until it's too late for him to ruin it. Jonah smiled like a man watching chess pieces fall into place. Good. Always said you were the smartest person on that sinking ship. I held his gaze. Are you still invested? In you? He said. Always. I left the meeting both energized and rattled, because now it was real. Not just a whispered scheme, but a full-on offensive. I had back-channel support, a ghost title, and the biggest deal of my career under one trembling hand. But every move had to be perfect. No leaks, no mistakes, no blood in the water. Back in my room that night, I dumped my blazer over the chair and stood barefoot on the hotel carpet, staring out at the Vegas skyline. Neon screamed below. Fountains danced for drunks and tourists and billion-dollar egos. Somewhere in the chaos, my old team was probably prepping for tomorrow's press junkets, totally unaware that their crown jewel was already halfway across enemy lines. I smiled, then I double-checked the Zenith doc, redrafted the pitch for Summit Tech, started drafting 3 fake email threads just in case I needed to bluff another meeting or redirect suspicion. My hands moved fast, but inside my chest hummed with the kind of fear that tastes like gunpowder. I was all in now, and there was no such thing as folding. The next morning broke with a kind of stillness that only ever happens right before a storm. When the hotel hallway hums too quiet and the light coming in through the blackout curtains feels off, like a spotlight waiting to burn you alive. I lay there for a minute in my robe, staring at the textured ceiling and letting the weight of the day settle on my chest, like an anvil wrapped in velvet. I checked my phone, 6:41 a.m., already 6 Slack messages, 3 missed calls from an unknown, and a new text from Jonah. He's here. No name, no context, but I didn't need either. My stomach clenched like it was prepping for impact. Ron. He was early. Maybe he'd never left. Maybe he'd flown in last night on the company card he claimed they had to tighten. I didn't bother with room service. I suited up. Black blouse, gold watch, neutral lips, power boots. I pinned my old company's badge back onto my lanyard like a crucifix and whispered a quick prayer to the patron saint of professional deceit. By 8:12 a.m., I was already on the expo floor, shaking hands and lying through my perfect white-collar teeth. The gossip hit before lunch. She's here? I thought she got axed. No, she's probably just transferring teams. Why would they let her pitch Zenith? Maybe she's poaching for someone else? You think she's shopping the deal? No way. She's too loyal. She built their partner stack from scratch. I floated past all of it, smiling, nodding, laughing at jokes that curdled my blood, pretending nothing had changed. I hit 3 panels before noon, dropped by a women in tech brunch I hadn't RSVP'd for, and bumped shoulders with more ex-colleagues in 5 hours than I had in 5 years. Each one looked at me like I was a walking ghost, alive, but wrong. At 12:17 p.m., I got the confirmation. Kara slid into my DMs with a screen grab, an internal Slack from the business development channel, Ron's name on it, casually mentioning that due to some shifting dynamics, we're now exploring a potential synergy with Horizon Labs. Horizon Labs, a mid-tier AI firm with good branding and barely any back-end strength. I nearly laughed out loud. That was the backup plan? They'd gone from dancing with Zenith to pawing at a glorified chatbot company with a marketing intern who called himself a growth prophet. They had no clue. No clue the original deal was already spoken for. No clue I'd walked it right out from under them. No clue the press timeline was already in motion. And then came the twist. 3:09 p.m. My phone buzzed. Jonah Mayers. Can we talk somewhere quiet? He's looking for you. Be careful what you say next. I stared at the texts, heart caught between a laugh and a scream. Jonah, the old mentor, the man who'd once sent me a bottle of Lagavulin with a note that read, "Don't ever let these children convince you they know more than you." He hadn't spoken since the bar the day before, but clearly he knew something had shifted. He's looking for you. It could only mean Ron, and if Ron was sniffing around, that meant he suspected. I typed back. Location, the rooftop bar. Now. I slipped away from the expo floor like a thief, took the stairs instead of the elevator, brushed past two execs from product who were mid-argument about logo placement. By the time I stepped out into the sunlight of the rooftop lounge, I was already sweating from heat, nerves, or maybe the slow, sick rush of being hunted. Jonah was at the far end, sipping a cucumber cocktail like it was scotch. He didn't smile. "You've got maybe 6 hours," he said, motioning me into the seat beside him. "Then the story becomes whatever they say it is." I sat. Define they. Your old boss, legal, comms. I don't think they know the full picture. They know something's missing. I steadied my voice. What did you tell them? Nothing yet. Jonah swirled the glass in his hand, watching the condensation drip down like blood from a lazy wound. I invested in the company because of you, he said. You were the only person in that goddamn place who ever knew what market timing actually meant. But now you're a walking conflict of interest. You realize that, don't you? I clenched my fists under the table. I didn't steal anything, I said. I was the deal. Ron just didn't know how to handle the idea that something good could originate outside his ego. Jonah smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. That may be true, but truth doesn't always win. Narrative does. I exhaled. So why are you warning me? Because I like watching kings get their teeth kicked in, he said, then took another sip. And because I need to know, are you really going to pull this off? I didn't hesitate. Yes. Silence. That followed was the kind that made or broke alliances. Finally, Jonah nodded. Then make it fast. Make it clean. And whatever you do, don't blink. I stood, hands trembling even though my face was granite. From below, the conference buzz rose like static. Somewhere on the expo floor, Ron was probably smiling, lying to someone, selling his version of events like it was gospel. But he didn't know. He didn't know I'd already rewritten the ending. He had no idea the countdown had begun. We met in a corner booth of a half-lit sushi bar that didn't exist on the conference map. One of those insider spots tucked between a spa entrance and a maintenance hallway, the kind of place you only found if someone wanted you to. I walked in 5 minutes early and saw Jonah already seated, tie off, sleeves rolled, sipping hot sake like he was waiting for a confession. Sit, he said, without looking up. I obeyed, not out of deference, but calculation. Jonah Mayers wasn't just an early investor. He was one of the architects of my old company's rise. A shadow puppeteer with a Rolodex of whales and an uncanny instinct for sniffing out rot. If he turned, If he even hinted at publicly backing her play, it could set off a domino effect across half the tech ecosystem. But if I blew this, I'd be radioactive by Monday. "You've got 10 minutes, Jonah said, eyes now on me, sharp as ever. "Tell me the truth. All of it. Don't pitch me." I took a breath and laid it bare. No euphemisms, no deflections. I told him about the Zenith term sheet, the firing, the pivot to Summit Tech, the provisional title, the secrecy, the fake badge, the NDA drafts, the fake calendar invites I generated to keep appearances intact. When I paused for air, he didn't react. He just stared. "Then why'd they really fire you?" I blinked. "Told you." "No," he cut in. "Why you? You weren't the dead weight. You weren't even overpaid. So why axe the one person actually producing?" My jaw tightened. Because Ron's a coward. Because I embarrassed him. Because the minute Zenith wanted me and not the logo, he knew he couldn't control the narrative anymore. So he pulled the ripcord. Jonah leaned back, swirling his sake. "So this is personal?" "It's not revenge," I said. "It's correction." That made him smirk. Just a twitch. "And what happens if you fail?" "I don't." "Wrong answer." He leaned forward now. "If you fail, they paint you as unstable, as insubordinate, as a liability who violated NDAs and hijacked IP. They make you the poster child for why execs should never empower nice girls who smile too much." My throat dried. He kept going. "I've watched this industry chew up better people than you, people who didn't go rogue. What makes you think you're untouchable?" "I'm not untouchable," I said, voice low. "I'm unowned." Jonah stared at me so long, I felt like my skin might peel. Then he set his glass down carefully. "Good." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded slip of paper, slid it across the table. "This is the comms director for one of Summit Tech's board partners. He doesn't know anything yet, but if you lock this in, the Zenith deal goes public before they even breathe Horizon's name. I'll nudge him quietly, and the funding tide will shift before Ron knows he's drowning." I picked up the paper like it was a lit match. "You're backing me?" I asked. "I'm hedging," Jonah said, "but I'm rooting for you." Then he looked me square in the face. "Make them bleed. I'm tired of watching idiots sink what I built." A silence settled between them, heavy with implication. I stood slowly, tucking the paper into my blazer like a war order. "I won't fail." "You might," he said, "but you'll do it loud, and that's more than I can say for the rest of them." I left the sushi bar without saying goodbye. Out in the corridor, the air hit colder. I checked my phone. 1 hour until the final Zenith session. 2 hours until Ron's scheduled keynote. 6 hours until the announcement embargo dropped. Every path forward was now lit with tripwires, but the prize, everything. If I pulled this off, I'd destroy the reputation of the man who minimized me, rewrite my own story mid-sentence, and walk into Monday as the architect of one of the most savage strategic pivots the Valley had ever seen. If I failed, I'd be the girl who torched her own career with ambition and spite. No in between. I exhaled slowly, like someone lighting a fuse with her breath. Let it burn. The bomb hit at 7:43 a.m. I was reviewing the final deck in Summit Tech's private suite, the one scheduled to go live in less than 4 hours, when Lars walked in, unshaven, eyes tight, phone in hand, jaw locked like he'd bitten into bad news and couldn't swallow. "We might have a problem." I didn't blink. Define might. He tossed the phone onto the table. A screen full of headlines blinked back at me. Horizon Labs in talks for breakthrough integration? Sources say deal could close before Q3. I scrolled. The article was hollow, anonymous quotes, no confirmation, just enough manufactured smoke to convince casual investors there was fire. My blood went cold. "This is Ron," I said. "It's a leak. He's faking traction. It's a preemptive PR strike." Lars nodded. "Still, it's working. I've had 2 board members text me asking if we're losing momentum, and Zenith's COO just emailed. Need to reconfirm timeline. Internal discussion needed before press." That's code for "we're spooked." I stood. I paced. The desert sun outside mocked me, pouring brightness on a moment that felt like free fall. "This was always going to happen," I snapped. "They're trying to create noise before the signal hits. Ron wants to control the narrative by inventing his own." Lars didn't answer right away, just rubbed the bridge of his nose and finally said the one thing I didn't want to hear. "Maybe we pause the release." I froze. The room tilted. "You're joking. We can regroup, let this Horizon stunt die down, circle back once the heat's off." "No," I said, louder now. "That's what they expect. That will blink. That will retreat." I turned toward the windows, fingers clenched so tight my nails bit skin. "This is it," the voice inside me whispered. "This is where most people lose their nerve, where they wait for perfect instead of forcing pressure to serve them." I spun back toward Lars. "Give me 30 minutes. I'll fix it." He looked at me, really looked, like he was trying to see if I still had fight left. I did. I always did. Lars nodded once. 30. I didn't waste a second. I locked myself in the adjoining suite, tossed my laptop onto the bed, and got to work like a woman possessed. First, I reworked the headline, killed the internal language, that drivel of MBA speak, and wrote something clean, savage, undeniable. Summit Tech and Zenith AI announce exclusive strategic partnership to redefine scalable AI. Former lead negotiator transitions to Summit Tech as interim VP. Then I made my boldest move yet. I picked up the phone, dialed Zenith's COO directly. "No Slack? No buffer?" "Matt," I said, calm but iron-edged, not countering Ron's noise. "We're burying it. Let's go 3-way joint press with Summit Tech, Zenith, and your advisory board. Show the industry this wasn't just a backdoor defection, it was evolution. And I'll write it myself." He hesitated. "We've never done a triple signature. You've also never been first to market with a modular cleanroom AI that doesn't collapse under load testing." Matt exhaled. "You're serious?" "Deadly." "Okay, send me a draft by Tenica." I hung up, breathed. Just typed fast, brutal, precise. At 9:52 a.m., I sent the finalized release to Zenith's team, Summit Tech Legal, and Jonah, who replied seconds later with a simple, "Perfect. I'll pull the trigger at 11:03. The time was intentional. Ron's keynote was scheduled for 11:00 sharp. He'd be 2 slides in, deep into his vision board of empty buzzwords, when the push notification would hit every relevant outlet's inbox. Julia Tran, former strategic lead, lands exclusive integration deal at rival firm. The entire room would turn, and they'd be looking at me. By 10:15 a.m., the suite was humming with activity. Summit Tech's internal PR team was staging the media booth. Lars was back on board, pacing like a caged general. I stood in the corner, arms crossed, eyes laser-fixed on the countdown clock I'd set on my phone. There was no backup plan now. If Zenith got cold feet, if someone pulled the plug, if even one press contact hesitated, my career wouldn't just flatline, it would detonate. But I felt no fear, only focus, a kind of calm that comes after you've already imagined every way you could be destroyed and decided to walk through the fire anyway. Ron wanted a narrative. I'd given him one. Only this time, it didn't end with me smiling politely while he took the credit. This time, credits would roll with my name in bold, and his microphone left dangling in silence. The ballroom was packed to the rafters, humming with that peculiar tech conference energy. All ego and espresso, badge scanners and startup stink. Rows of suits, buzz-cut VCs, graying founders, 20-somethings pretending they belonged. The lights were surgical, unforgiving. No one could hide in that room, not even God. I stood in the wings behind the curtain, flanked by Summit Tech's comms lead and a Zenith advisor who kept glancing at his watch like it was wired to a detonator. My heels were planted like anchors, my hands still, my chest rising with slow, deliberate breaths. On stage, the MC finished his hollow intro, and now he boomed, "Please welcome the head of strategic partnerships at Merge Logic, Ronald Pierce." The lights shifted, the music swelled, and there he was. Ron stepped into view like he was descending from heaven, his perfect coif in place, a tailored jacket cutting his silhouette like an ego wrapped in cashmere. He held the clicker in his right hand, his other lifted in mock humble greeting. "Good morning, everyone," he said, all syrup and smug. "Let's talk about transformation." The screen behind him flickered, then froze. Ron paused, confused. He tapped the clicker, tapped again. The screen went black. A beat, and then Julia Tran, Interim VP of Strategic Initiatives, Summit Tech in partnership with Zenith AI. Exclusive API integration confirmed. The ballroom gasped, actually gasped, like a single creature losing its breath all at once. My photo was there too, high-res and backlit, confident, composed, no longer tucked behind someone else's headline. Beneath it, 3 logos glowed: Summit Tech, Zenith, a third from Zenith's advisory group, sealing the trinity. Phones started buzzing. One investor near the front pulled out his tablet mid-sentence. Another stood and whispered to a colleague before speed-walking out the side. I could feel it from backstage, the crowd's weight shifting, physically turning away from the stage. Ron stood there, frozen, hands still lifted, half caught between power pose and panic. His lips parted, but no sound came. The screen behind him now played a short teaser, 3 seconds long, showing a sleek demo of the Summit Tech Zenith interface, coded to look like a clean, surgical incision slicing away the fat from old enterprise software. The final shot, my signature on the screen, live, time-stamped, executed. The MC, confused, stepped half forward as if to intervene, then realized he was out of his depth too. Ron blinked, looked toward the stage left like someone just yanked his tether. But the stage light didn't follow him. It dimmed, hard. Feed cut. Silence. I stepped backward into the shadowed corridor, my body humming with electricity, but my face still as stone. My earpiece crackled. "We've got press lined up at the skylight room." They're already walking. Walking, not metaphorically. The audience, hundreds of them, were actually leaving Ron's keynote, drifting out in small groups, heading to my press event. You could feel the shift in the floor, like the building itself was moving away from him. I didn't smile, didn't laugh, didn't cry. I just stood there, breathing deep, controlled, alive. 4 years of being the fixer, the whisperer, the smile in the corner while other people took the bow, undone in 4 seconds of screen time. No vindictive speeches, no confessionals, just my name, my title, my work on the biggest screen in the room. Somewhere behind me, Lars clapped twice and muttered, "Beautiful." Somewhere across the hall, Ron was probably trying to spin a story that had already set itself on fire. And somewhere in the center of the tech universe, Julia Tran had just become undeniable. I walked out into the light, not to claim the spotlight, but to own it. This story of Julia Tran teaches us the powerful lesson of self-worth and resilience. When faced with betrayal and professional dismissal, Julia didn't succumb to despair or choose an easy path of quiet resignation. Instead, she recognized her inherent value, leveraged her unique skills, and fearlessly pursued the opportunity she truly deserved. The message for the audience is clear. Never let others define your worth or dim your light. Your talent, dedication, and ingenuity are your most potent assets. Even when situations seem to crumble around you, trust your instincts, fight for your rightful place, and remember that true power comes from within, allowing you to rewrite your own narrative and emerge stronger and more brilliant than before.